Hello everyone, I'm JoltKing627, and today, we're going to take a look at some balls. So, if you couldn't already tell, these are the new 50 caliber foam paintballs that Monkey Mods has started selling. Basically, the gist of these is that they're little mini rival balls. They got all the dimpling and everything, but they are the same diameter as your standard Nerf dart. They come in these little bags of about 100 balls for $5 United States dollars, not including shipping. So, what are they useful for? Well, mainly they seem to be useful for shotgun ammo in the Colonel Wasp Firefly. I will not be showing this in this video because I do not own a Firefly, and enough people have already shown that that is effective. What I will be doing is showing everything that I was able to use these for that seemed pretty effective. And we'll also take a look at some things where they almost worked, but are very finicky and honestly probably would not hold up during battle. So, keeping in mind that all of these were tested in a 30-foot long basement, and I do not know how well they would do at ranges longer than that, let's take a look at what we got. One of the best uses that I found for these little guys is that it seems to be able to take a lot of things that are one barrel and make them into a shotgun. Of course, for this to work, you'll have to remove any dart pegs that may be in the barrels, as well as possibly the air restrictor mechanism if there is one. One thing to be aware of, however, is that tapered barrels will kill you, such as with this Trilogy shell. This has had the dart pegs removed. Now, yes, you can fit 2 balls in each barrel, but the second ball just drops out the front and causes jams and stuff in my Trilogy tube magazine, so that didn't end up working out so well. However, this is not always going to be the case, as is with this clip from one of the Buzzbee Jaguars, or in this case, a Cataclysm. These seem to have a little bit longer of the tight barrel material at the back, and I was able to get this to fire 2 balls at once out of each barrel very, very well. The place where these seem to really shine, though, is with a tighter barrel material that's a little more uniform in its diameter, such as brass, or CPVC, or aluminum. For instance, a good setup that I found was a foot of brass in my Berzactor, which is a nice large air tank, and on the end here we have the Old Fusions Designs turbine scar, and apparently scars help with the spread on the balls, gets them to be a little wider, which is nice for up close so you can hit more targets. And I was able to, with this setup, fire 10 of these balls at about 30 feet, and have them not get too much drop, and they had a very nice spread. Very happy with how that turned out. You don't even necessarily need high spring load or large plunger volume either. This is the lock-in load, and it's still on its stock spring. It's just been rebarreled. And I was able to get it to fire 2 to 3 of these little foam balls with no problem, and it fired them fairly well. Another, albeit lesser case of this is with Buzzbee double shots. You can get these to fire the little foam balls, despite having very small plunger volume. They don't fire particularly amazingly, but they'll go 30 feet with an angle. Of course, to do this, you cannot use the stock shells. You have to use a modified shell that you have either brassed or something, or you could go the route that I have here with these 3D printed shells. These work very, very well. They were designed by Diesel. I'll have a link to these in the description box below. Highly recommend them. But out of this, I was able to fire 2 balls per shell with mediocre, but still usable range. Now, unfortunately, something that doesn't work is magazines, for now. While they fire great out of the blasters themselves, like the skewer was doing particularly nicely with them, the magazines just hate them. They will load 3 in a row. However, once you start trying to stack them, you can get like 2 to 3, maybe 4 layers if you're lucky, before they just start kind of not wanting to feed or go in properly anymore. And you have to be very careful, as they always want to slide out of the edges. They're very loose. I think, however, it is possible to design a magazine that would hold 3 in a row, but each in their separate tubes, and I believe that would probably work, and then feed in the blasters. But as that has not been done yet, this, as of now, isn't really very practical. Another thing they work in, albeit not as consistently, is inline clips. This is my inline clip knockout. It normally holds 4 half darts or 2 full darts. Now, I'm able to fit a whole bunch of these little balls in here, and they do work. In fact, they shotgun. But they don't shotgun consistently. It'll usually either fire 2 balls or 3 balls, but occasionally only 1. And there's no real way to tell which it's going to do when you pull the trigger, so you're going to have to be careful with your ammo consumption on this one. Now, the final thing we're going to talk about is these foam balls being a replacement for hyper ammo. As you can see, hyper ammo and these little foam balls are very close in size, hyper being just a tad larger. Now, hyper had a whole lot of issues, where because they kind of like to stick to each other, they didn't like to feed very well. And they kind of like to pick up dust and stuff, which is kind of disgusting. Now, these little foam balls don't do that. They don't stick to each other at all. They kind of just slide right off each other. Now, what makes this really interesting is you can convert the Rush 40 to fire these little foam balls just by shoving some brass wrapped in tape down the barrel. That's it. The entire feed mechanism feeds these perfectly with no modification. Now, how does this perform overall? The accuracy and range is actually pretty good. It really is comparable to the original Hyper ammo. As far as feeding, it feeds so much better than Hyper. You can stuff 70 rounds of these little foam balls in the hopper, whereas it would only hold 40 of the Hyper ammunition. And it fed every single one without a single dry fire. That's impressive because you can't say the same of the original Hyper ammo. They like to misfeed and just not feed and clump together and a whole bunch of other stuff. And these little foam balls don't do that. So I see a lot of potential here. However, I do not know how well this will work in the Siege 50 or the Mach 100. The Mach being a flywheeler would present other issues. However, I still see a lot of potential for where this kind of conversion could go. I have had some issues where my hop-up tab has decided to become a projectile, but that is just because I have not glued in my hop-up tab yet. Alright, that's enough talk. Let's go ahead and take a look at these firing out of a variety of blasters. Alright, first up, we've got a Buzzbee Cataclysm, or Jaguar, same thing, with 6 rounds of 2 balls each. Next up, my inline clip knockout loaded with 12 balls. Time it shot 2. Usually shoots 2. That time it only shot 1. That time it shot 3. There's 2. Another single. And another single. And yet another single. And dry fire. That means there's nothing left. And now for 2 balls per shell with my modified Walking Dead double shot. Here is the lock and load, currently loaded with 2 balls. Now again with 3. And finally with 4. Here we have a heavily modified brass spring upgrade Jolt with 2 balls. Now with 3. And now the Berzactor with 10 rounds loaded. That was fun, let's do it again. Now again with 15 instead of 10. Oh, it's beautiful. Attempting to fire 3 at once out of my super spamf. I've got 3 layers of this, that's about the max it seems to want to hold at the moment. Not amazing, but not bad either. And finally, the Rush 40. And there goes the hop-up tab. However, it should still fire. Yup. Just with much less accuracy due to the lack of hop-up tab. So, final thoughts? Should you purchase these? I'm gonna go with yes. If you have a Colonel Wasp Firefly, these are absolutely worth it. They have already proven to be very useful in that blaster. Even if you don't, there are definitely things you can do with them, such as converting a Hyper Blaster. Even if you don't have any of those things, it could be worth it to pick up a pack or 2 of these just to see what you can come up with to fire them. They are quite a bit of fun. However, just a warning, they do tend to get lost easily, as they are very, very small. Anyway, that's just about it. I'll have a link in the description box below on where you can purchase these. If you have any comments or suggestions, please make sure to leave them in the comment section down below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and thank you all for watching.